So, thank you all for joining. We are continuing the CC Compact online. We are on episode number 6, the 6th session, Vrindavana and the Gosvamis. You're with the School of Bhakti in the UK, and thank you, School of Bhakti, for hosting this course. So today we come to a deeply moving section of this Chaitanya Charitamrita. Up to this point, we have seen Mahaprabhu flood Navadvip, South India, and Jagannath Puri with divine love. Navadvip, South India, Jagannath Puri. But now his current of love from his heart moves towards something even more intimate. What is that? Vrindavan. Vrindavan is not just a location on a map. Vrindavan is the heartland of divine intimacy. It is the place where Krishna is not approached primarily in awe and reverence, but in sweetness, affection, parental love, and conjugal love, and friendship. It is the land where love forgets that God is God. That's Vrindavan. And alongside Vrindavan, today we'll meet the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. That's why it goes together, Vrindavan and the Goswamis. And these Goswamis, those are the extraordinary associates who actually took the inner mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and gave it shape for the world to understand, to apply. Mahaprabhu gave the inspiration, and the Goswamis gave the architecture. Audio is low. Okay. Let me see. Thank you for letting me know. Just give me a second. I want to make sure my microphone... Okay, microphone is okay, but I'm going to check my audio settings. There it is. Is my audio better now?
It's fine.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I don't want it to get too loud. Also, it can get a little harder to hear if it's too loud. Okay. So it's like, can you imagine Mahaprabhu giving a whole bunch of gold, just raw gold, and then the Goswamis turn it into the jewelry. Mahaprabhu gave the ecstasy, and the Goswamis gave the theology, the places, the practices, the books, the culture. All that comes from Mahaprabhu. So this session is really about two things: the heart of the tradition and the builders of the tradition. The Vrindavan shows us what Mahaprabhu came to taste. The Goswamis show us how that gift was preserved for generations to come. So before we move forward, let's briefly gather the threads from the previous session. We remember Mahaprabhu's his South India tour is quite astonishing in its purpose and its scale. And you remember how many miles he traveled roughly over the 2 years, which is a lot. He did all by walking. Anyone recall?
Was it 4,000?
5,000?
That's right, 4,000 miles, exactly right. That's a lot. 4,000 miles over 2 years, which means, on average, 2,000 miles every year. It's a lot. Walking. A lot of walking. You know, if you try to do that with your Apple Watch, and you can see how many steps it takes in a day. It's a lot. It's not ordinary travel. It's not religious tourism. Sometimes we have to do yatra now. We're old, we have to do religious tourism. That's not what it was. It was the mercy of the Lord moving across an entire landscape, awakening people, visiting holy places, planting seeds of devotion. It wasn't ordinary in any way. It's quite amazing. Who are some of the main personalities Mahaprabhu met in South India? Anybody recall some of the important names that we talked about?
Ramananda Ray and the king.
Ramananda Rai, yes. And the
Kurma
king.
Brahmana,
The Kurma Brahmana.
the illiterate Brahmana.
The literate Brahmana, which is a different person, yes.
And
Venkat Bhatta.
the king.
King, yes.
Prataparudra.
Prataparudra, that's correct. That's correct. Anyone else?
The leper.
It's coming very muffled, Mataji. What did you say?
Leper.
Oh, the leper. Yeah.
Vasudeva Datta.
That's right. So quite a few. And then Venkat Bhatt. That's right. Oh, yeah, Venkat Bhatt. So what, with this conversation with Venkat Bhatt and Raman Rai, in just one or two words, not too many sentences, just one or two words. What was his key point with Venkat Bhatt first? What did he establish with him?
Was it go on doing whatever you are doing and
No, that was with the Kurma Brahmana. With Venkat Bhatt, it was a very specific thing. Each of them had a very specific point. With Kurma Brahmana, he said, "Go on doing what you're doing."
devotional service.
With Venkat Bhatt, it was about Rasaraj. Krishna is the unique sweetness, the Krishna form of the Lord, who is the original personality. He's Rasaraj. He's full of rasa. So Rasaraj means that all the sweet tastes of intimacy is available in Krishna. This is basically to remind, because in that area with Venkat Bhatt, they worship Krishna in awe and reverence in the form of Vishnu Narayan, which is nothing wrong. He didn't say this is wrong. He just said Krishna offers a lot of intimacy in Vrindavan. That was the point of Venkat Bhatt. And with Ramananda Rai, he helped him move beyond the external religiosity, varnashram, just external. It's important, varnashram is important, but it's not the most important thing. Some people think it's most important. But he said, no. Only pure devotional service and deepest love for Krishna is the highest. So move beyond ordinary duty. It's much, only that's left. Okay, we can go some of these. Yes, we go back. What events had to take place before the ecstasy of Rath Yatra could manifest?
The devotees get together.
They had to get together. What else? An important, very important event to prepare for Rath Yatra.
Gondia Marjanam.
That's correct. Kundicha Marjanam. The temple has to be cleansed. In other words, before the highest spiritual... This is for us. These are all for us. All these messages, okay? They're not something just historical. Happen in history, but it's for us to really meditate on. That before any higher spiritual emotion can happen, there has to be association, there has to be chanting, there has to be cleaning, there has to be purification. Scrubbing very hard, because it's really hard to clean our hearts. And we remember as well the inner meaning of Rath Yatra. Externally, it's a beautiful grand festival. We invite everybody. There's like festoon and colors and lovely kirtan. Internally, Krishna
going to Vrindavana.
Yeah, being drawn back toward Vrindavan. Drawn by who? The love of the Vrajavasis, especially the gopis. And among gopis especially, Srimati Radharani, correct. So Mahaprabhu was not just participating in the festival. He was relishing the deep meaning from within. Next time we pull the rath, okay, next time you hold on to that nylon rope, don't be, of course you still look out where you step and everything, but don't be bothered by externals. The heat and what, if you're going to get a spot in the prasadam line. No. Try to remember this, what you're doing. What am I pulling? I'm pulling the Lord into my heart. and pulling the Lord just like the gopis are pulling the Lord. How much love they had. How much they must be missing him in separation. Imagine their tears that, my God, Krishna, you've been gone so long. Do you understand our pain? Krishna, please come back. That's the mood. Not that by the time will I get the sight, will there be any watermelon left? No, that's not what they're thinking about. That's what we're thinking about. That's the inner meaning. We have to next time think about it when you hold on to the rope. Look at the Lord. Look at why he's so, so beautiful with his. Why is he smiling so much? Why is he so happy? See. And then finally, we remember this king. It was very hard to attract the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Prataprudra, that's correct. Prataprudra. He longed intensely for Mahaprabhu's mercy. He was powerful in the eyes of the world. He had so much influence. But he could not gain access through power. There's some higher power than him. That higher power is only available through humility, through devotion. It reminds us that divine mercy, the grace, is not purchased by status. It is attracted by softened sincerity. And this brings us exactly where we need to be today. Mahaprabhu has already spread the divine mercy in Navadvip and in South India, Jagannath Puri, but his heart now is still moving towards something more intimate. The longing to reach Vrindavan rises to the forefront. And with that longing begins this next great movement of Madhya Leela. So this section of Madhya Leela can be understood through the word aspiration. He's aspiring. He's already he's done the propagation. But he's aspiring, his aspiration is unfulfilled until he reaches Vrindavan. Why? Because Vrindavan is not just another pilgrimage site. It is the place most connected to the innermost purpose of his descent. So here we're entering a part of the narrative where his longing becomes the main force. Mahaprabhu is no longer just simply traveling. He's moving under the force of divine aspiration. And that is important for us. Spiritual life is not sustained just by duty. It's sustained by a sense of longing. Rules are important to steady us, but longing carries us, propels us. At some point, devotion must become a journey of the heart. This is the map. You can get a sense. Okay, I'll just point out. Oops. Yeah, here. So you see this Jagannath Puri on this side, on the right side, and where Mahaprabhu travels. So just north of Jagannath Puri, of course, is Navadvip, Shantipur, all this area. This is Mayapur area. Okay, then you travel south, Kurma Kshetra, and then all this Ahobilam, Tirupati, and these are all the different places where Mahaprabhu traveled all the way down and came back up, Udupi, Pandharpur, he was there, Nashik, and then, of course, there's Prayag, Varanasi is up here in North India, Gaya is up here. So you get a sense, these are different places. Ramkeli is way up north. And then Vrindavan, Mathura is just south of New Delhi. So this section invites us to pause and reflect. What is my Vrindavan? What is that sacred place? Sacred state, sacred aspiration toward which my spiritual life is moving. We all have activity and service and structure, but what is our inner destination? What is the heart seeking? Mahaprabhu's example reminds us that a devotee must not lose that inner aspiration. It's for us, remember, it's for us, this message. We can marvel at his intensity of longing, but it's also meant to remind us, hey, we're in that tradition. We're also developing, we're supposed to develop that longing. Now, Mahaprabhu's journey, you can see, here, he's just running. It didn't happen immediately. In fact, there are several failed attempts. The first was after his Harinam Diksha. He just got initiated. I gotta go to Vrindavan. But then he was redirected by Nityananda Prabhu because his work in Navadvip was not yet complete. Then after taking sannyas, he ran toward Vrindavan, but he again couldn't make it because Nityananda Prabhu redirected him again. So later, after Ramkeli, he again wanted to go. The timing was not right. This teaches us something very deep. Even divine aspiration unfolds according to divine timing. Sometimes in our own lives, we may feel, I want this spiritual breakthrough now. I want this service now. I want this realization now. But Mahaprabhu's example teaches us that even a pure longing sometimes has to wait until the moment is ready, until the time is right, the moment is ripe. At Ramakeli, there's another reason for the delay. He met Rup Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. That's when he met first. So outwardly it looks like postponement, but inwardly it's preparation. Sometimes what looks like a detour is actually destiny working in hidden ways. And from this comes another lesson. Pilgrimage to holy places is important. Mahaprabhu teaches by his own example. These holy places are not sentimental accessories to our bhakti. They are part of the path. Very important part. Should bring this to this very beautiful conceptual slide. Something to think about. 4 types of Vrindavan. So Vrindavan can be understood in 4 ways. First, there's Golok Dham. That's up here in the spiritual world. It's eternal Vrindavan. That's the supreme destination. Second, down here, there is Bhauma Dham, or Bhauma Vrindavan. That's manifested here on earth. Take a flight to Delhi, you take a couple hours drive, that's the Bhauma Vrindavan. Where Krishna's earthly pastimes are remembered, they're accessed. Third, there's this envisioned Dham, where Vrindavan is revealed through the purified vision of great devotees. A pure devotee, so like Prabhupada's come, he sees and he reveals where others see only some geography. Prabhupada said, no, this is different, this is special. That's revelation. And fourth is the inner Dham. It's Vrindavan within our consciousness. It's Vrindavan consciousness itself. A devotee whose heart is fully absorbed in Krishna carries Vrindavan within. Because remember, if Krishna is there, Vrindavan is there. And if Krishna is in that devotee's heart in an active, forefront kind of way, loving way, very conscious way, then the devotee has to carry Vrindavan. See? So that's the inner Dham. So what does this conceptual diagram help us with? It helps us to avoid 2 extremes. One extreme is reducing Vrindavan to just a location on the map. That's all there is. There's no Vrindavan. The other extreme is just sentimentalizing it as only an inner feeling. Our tradition gives us both. The real holy place where you can roll in the sand, and there's also a real state of consciousness. So the path is this. Visit the Dham, externally visit it. Honor it physically. Bow down. Touch your head at the foothills of Govardhan, where Krishna lifted that mountain. Go to the forest as Krishna danced. Honor it physically. Serve it practically. And then gradually awaken it within. Because we have to carry Krishna in our heart. This is Krishna consciousness. And Krishna is never out of Vrindavan. So Vrindavan has to be in the heart as well. As Mahaprabhu finally journeys toward Vrindavan, the atmosphere becomes charged with anticipation. He travels through the Jharkhand forest. This is feared by ordinary people. Under his presence, it becomes transformed. The animals begin chanting. It's a miracle. Natural enemies lose hostility. The forest becomes Vrindavan through his presence. That image is powerful. When divine sound enters a space, disorder becomes harmony. Fear becomes cooperation. Hostility becomes shared glorification. It's not just a miracle story, it's a metaphor for what bhakti does inside of us. The forest, quote unquote, of the conditioned heart contains many wild tendencies, conflicting impulses, inner enemies. But when the holy name truly enters, even the tigers and deer begin to move together in peace. Mahaprabhu also meets Tapan Mishra and Raghunath Bhatt. These meetings, again, they're not casual. They show how Mahaprabhu is already gathering and preparing these personalities and who will become essential to his mission. And as he draws closer to Vrindavan, his anticipation increases. There's a mood of a lover approaching the beloved after long separation. Now Mahaprabhu enters Vrindavan and performs Vraja Mandal Parikrama. That's where you walk around Vrindavan, you circumambulate. This is one of the most sacred moments in this narrative. So Mahaprabhu discovers Shyamakunda and Radhakunda, which are outwardly, they become hidden, they're obscured, you couldn't see them, and but by his divine vision, of course, he reveals them again as the most exalted places in all of existence. This is very significant. What the world forgets, Mahaprabhu restores. What time buries, Bhakti uncovers. He also honors Govardhan. You can see here, this Govardhan Parikrama. With extreme reverence. He doesn't just casually walk upon the hill. Because Govardhan is Krishna's great devotee and also not different from Krishna himself. This teaches us that advanced devotion is full of sensitivity. Love becomes careful. He doesn't step on the mountain. And the Gopal deity comes down to give him darshan. Again, the message is clear. When longing is pure, Krishna does reciprocate. And you'll see in your life, Krishna will reciprocate with you when you've been sincere. And then comes that extraordinary scene of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leaving Vrindavan, and he encounters the cowherd boy playing the flute. In that moment, he becomes overwhelmed with ecstasy, and he loses external consciousness. So even on the outskirts of Vraja, a small reminder of Krishna is enough to completely flood him. This reminds us that for one whose heart is awake, spiritual reality is never far away. A sound, a place, a name, a memory, a melody. Anything connected to Krishna can become the trigger, the doorway to ecstasy. And that's what he's teaching us. Now Mahaprabhu enters okay, let's see. So he left this Vrindavan and he encountered his Pathan soldiers. It's a pretty cool story about them. How he kind of converts them. We're going to keep moving because we have a lot to cover today. Now I move on to this organization in the flow of nectar. Part 4, Madhya Lila. This shift is important. Mahaprabhu is not only a mystic absorbed in ecstasy, he is also the founder of movements meant to endure. After flooding the world with divine love, the next question is, how will this gift be preserved? Ecstasy without structure may inspire one generation and disappear in the next generation. Organization, when it's spiritually grounded, can allow this inspiration to continue. So this part 4 shows Mahaprabhu moving from revelation to preservation. It's preserving, from experience to transmission, from current to channel. This is a very relevant principle for us also, personally and institutionally. Yes, spiritual depth is essential, but if spiritual depth is not organized properly, it does not endure. Mahaprabhu wanted the Sankirtan movement to outlive personalities, outlive moments, and outlive historical circumstances. How do you do that? That requires empowered people with both realization and responsibility. That's where these amazing personalities, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, come. See, movement now needs stewards. It needs people who can understand the heart of Mahaprabhu and also translate that heart into books and practices and theology and etiquette and standards, what to do, what not to do. That's where the Goswamis enter. So Rupa and Sanatan, they are among the topmost extraordinary figures in our tradition. Materially, they are highly placed. They're incredibly smart, geniuses. They're powerful, they're educated, they're influential. Spiritually, they were deeply detached, actually, and just irresistibly drawn toward Mahaprabhu. Outwardly, they worked in government service. Inwardly, they belonged to Krishna. Their life teaches that spiritual awakening doesn't always begin with immediate external renunciation. Sometimes there's an internal ripening first. We shouldn't feel bad we're also working. We shouldn't feel bad that, we have to serve a government that we don't particularly like how they behave, or maybe serve a corporation and it's just what it is, Mahaprabhu even instructed them to wait. He sent them a cryptic message implying that one may remain externally engaged while inwardly creating and cultivating a deeper loyalty. This is subtle teaching. Real renunciation is not impulsiveness. It's readiness that's guided by the divine timing. So eventually Rupa Goswami, he leaves first. He distributes his wealth with remarkable intelligence. Some money for Vaishnavas, some for family, some for emergencies. Even in renunciation, there is a sense of responsibility. Sanatana Goswami's path is a little more difficult. He's imprisoned. He then escapes by using the funds that Rupa Goswami had wisely set aside. Again, mercy is there, but intelligence is also there. This whole section teaches that surrender is not disorderly. Bhakti is not carelessness. Spiritual heroism includes practical wisdom. So then what are the teachings? Mahaprabhu instructs Rupa Goswami in Prayag. Prayag is in North India, not too far from Vrindavan. And these are the foundational teachings of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. He explains, first of all, how rare devotional service is. He starts out with, among many human beings, just a few seek transcendence. He starts out way on top, that among all these species of life and so on. Then among human beings, there's just a few who even care about transcendence. And then among the transcendentalists, very few come to pure devotion. Now this is not meant to discourage us, of course, but to help us appreciate the preciousness of this gift we've been given. This is not just one among other spiritual practices. This is a uniquely powerful, the topmost really, the topmost perfection. Then he gives the famous seed of devotion. This bhakti begins as a seed planted in the heart, and it grows by the watering process of hearing and chanting. That's important. This is one of the clearest and most practical teachings in our tradition. If we want to grow our devotion, we don't merely wait for inspiration. We water the seed even if we don't feel like it. We hear, we chant, we protect the creeper from weeds. We stay connected to genuine nourishment. Mahaprabhu also teaches Rupa Goswami about pure devotion. What is pure devotion? Pure devotion service. It's free from selfish desires, separate agendas. Anyabhilashita, shunyam, no other aspirations. Everything else will be zeroed out. Shunya, zero, completely. Then he reveals the science of rasa. Rasa means the different loving relationships with Krishna. And because Rupa Goswami received and systematically organized these teachings, he became the great theologian of divine rasa, divine love. Through works like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Prabhupada gave us in the form of nectar of devotion. He didn't invent Mahaprabhu's gift. He articulated it, he preserved it, transmitted it. That's why we, all of us, are called Rupanugas, followers of Rupa Goswami. And it's incumbent upon us to keep articulating this message for the next generations. The languages change, the priorities may change. We have to understand the essence, be able to transmit it in a way that it touches somebody else's heart, moves them to take up Krishna consciousness. Just think about today, Prabhupada, he's given us this essence in English. The vast majority of people who are following Rupa Goswami today on this world, on this earth, are doing it through English, through the English words of Prabhupada. The same essence. So it's our job as descendants of Prabhupada to keep that moving, to keep re-articulating in different words, in our own words, so that we can connect with people and give it and transmit it. We are Rupanugas. We are followers of Rupa Goswami. Now Mahaprabhu's teachings to Sanatana Goswami, they're equally foundational. Though somewhat they're more broad, they're more systematic. When Sanatana Goswami arrives, he comes in great humility. Outwardly he appears broken, unpolished. Others didn't even recognize him as a great Vaishnava. But Mahaprabhu does. He sees beyond the external condition. That itself is a lesson for us, that spiritual worth is not always externally visible. Mahaprabhu embraces Sanatana Goswami and spends extensive time instructing him on the nature of the absolute truth and Krishna's energies, the material and spiritual worlds, the process of devotional service, the qualities of Krishna, spiritual and material worlds, everything. Regulated and spontaneous devotion. What are the different qualities of Krishna and so on. He talks about this Atmaram verse, very famous one. Now if Rupa Goswami is the theologian of rasa, Sanatana Goswami is a theologian of sambandha. Sambandha means establishing proper devotional relationships. It's the foundational framework that explains reality, that devotion can rest on clarity. Sanatana, he received not just inspiration, but a whole world view. And notice Sanatana's response. After receiving all these teachings, He prays that they become awakened in the heart. He says, right now they're in the head. But my Lord, now I put my head at your feet. You please touch my head so that the understanding moves from the head to the heart. This is beautiful. We may have so many things in our head, but it will not move to the heart. It will not move us unless we get the blessing of Mahaprabhu. We get the blessing of the pure devotional service, of the pure devotee. We get the blessing of Prabhupada. We get the blessing of Guru. We can memorize everything, but we do need the current of blessing to flow through. Spiritual knowledge is not complete just when it's heard. It becomes complete when it's awakened within. We pray, Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa. This is a prayer to Rupa Goswami. Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who is established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? We pray, we beg. This is important for our understanding of our identity. Who we are Rupa Nugas. We pray for the shelter of the one who established within this world the mission to fulfill this desire, the prediction, the prophecy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This means that if we truly want to serve Mahaprabhu's movement, we don't bypass Rupa Goswami. We come through him. To be a Rupanuga means more than admiring Rupa Goswami historically. It means receiving our orientation from him. When you join an organization, any company or a university or something like that, they have an orientation session. They help you find your way around, what to do, what not to do. You go here, you can go there. This is how you operate, how you'll function. That's our orientation. That whole orientation is given to us by Rupa Goswami. You have to read Nectar of Instruction very deeply, because we bring lots of baggage with us from our background, and we think it's awesome stuff. Like things like, who am I to judge anyone? You should not judge or discern. And that's true. In Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami says one should not discern or distinguish or discriminate based on external features, like the color of his skin, or maybe what their birth parent lineage, or even if there's a deformation or the way they stand and things like that. You should not discriminate. But he says you must discern based on their behavior. Certain behaviors, people, if they have certain behaviors, you respect them from a distance. And certain behaviors, when they exhibit that are transcendental, you come closer to them, learn from them, try to get influenced by them. What are those behaviors? Isn't that judgmentalism? No, it's not. Those kind of things, he reorients everything very beautifully. What is the orientation that we get from Rupa Goswami? Purity of devotion, clarity of theology, refinement of practice, deep sensitivity to Krishna's loving exchanges. This slide also gives us a powerful connection to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada stayed at Radha Damodar. He prayed for empowerment. He himself spoke of receiving the blessings of Rupa Goswami. So when we pray to serve meaningfully in Mahaprabhu's mission, we stand in that same stream. Our question should be, am I merely active in devotion, or am I consciously trying to become a follower of Rupa Goswami? Now we move from the teachings given to the Goswamis to the mission entrusted to the Goswamis. Mahaprabhu simply did not he didn't simply inspire them privately. He commissioned them publicly through their service. This is Sanatana Goswami's own handwriting of Vaishnav Toshani. This is Jiva Goswami's Gopal Tapani Tika in Sanskrit. he gave them, Mahaprabhu, he gave the Goswamis a massive mandate. First, they were to excavate the holy places. This means they have to go out and discover, rediscover, and re-establish the sites of Krishna's pastimes so that future generations can connect tangibly with Vrajadham. It's not a small job at all. Find the spot first. Confirm it. Then when you find the spot, then establish these gorgeous temples. Deity worship and temples. Bhakti is not just internal emotion. It is expressed and cultivated through worship, through service, sacred space, daily practice. These beautiful temples. This is Sanatana Goswami, this temple. It's quite an astounding story, just the story of how this temple was built. Sanatana Goswami just worshipping the deity under a tree. Or just a small little hut or something, maybe. There was no temple. And then Krishna arranged circumstances. A very rich salt merchant, his ship got stuck in the river just down there, from there. And he got a divine revelation. And we have many amazing stories. We can go to Vrindavan and see these temples ourselves. We're very, very fortunate. We're living in a time when this is available to us. This is built by the Goswamis themselves. It's outstanding and astounding. Third, they were to write literature. Nana Shastra Vicharane Kanipuno. Many kinds of works, different varieties of works in Sanskrit, some in Bengali. This is crucial. Mahaprabhu knew that without books, teachings can become vague. In Kali Yuga, it's different. You have to write things down. Without theology, emotion becomes unstable. Without documentation, memory fades. That's why we have to read books. We should not be lazy. Mahaprabhu himself says, don't be lazy in studying these things. Siddhanta boliye chitte na karo alash. Please don't be lazy, my dear people. Fourth, they were to give a framework, outline Vaishnava culture, etiquette. Devotion is not just what we believe. It's not about belief. It's how we live after we've understood it. How we serve, how we speak, how we honor, how we cooperate, how we carry ourselves. All that is our devotion. That is all devotion. It's not separate. How I speak to the average person, that is my devotion. It should reflect it. How I allow my anger to flow through me and hurt somebody else, or how I suppress it, or how I control it, that reflects on my devotion. When I get irritated, do I fly off the handle? Maybe I do, but I should stop? Maybe. Now that I'm trying to be devotee, maybe I'll make a conscious attempt to not take out my anger on my friends and family. Maybe I shouldn't do anything sneaky or underhanded anymore. Maybe I should stop being manipulative like I used to be. So many things. This is culture and etiquette. We should learn it, live it. Serve more, serve deeper, be more sincere, be more plain, be more straightforward. The Goswamis did not merely teach ideas, they established a complete civilizational form of devotion. Sacred geography, sacred practice, sacred literature, sacred conduct, sacred example. And really, this is why the movement has endured. And if we don't carry it forward, it will not endure. It's on our shoulders, all of us collectively, to keep this moving forward with our own example of transformation. We don't want to be just readers and not change our behavior. See, these are 6 Goswamis, the exemplary renunciates, and most So at this point, we can appreciate something profound. Mahaprabhu's movement was not preserved by institutions alone or by charisma alone. It was preserved by saintly persons. All these persons, you can see they're right here on this family tree. These persons who lived the truths so deeply that they could give the truths in a durable form. That remains true today. We've seen this slide before. Let's take another look if we can recognize now some more names. We have Madhavendra Puri, the top up here. His disciple Ishwar Puri. Ishwar Puri gave initiation to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is on the family side. Jagannath Mishra, his father. Sachi Mata, his mother. Vishwarupa, his brother. His wife Lakshmi Priya. And Vishnu Priya later. Close associates: Sarup Damodar, Ramananda Rai, Govinda Das, Haridas Thakur, Prabodhanand Saraswati. Mahaprabhu's disciples. Right? The Gosvamis are here, some of them. Then of course we have Pundarik Vidyanidhi, who is the god brother of Ishwar Puri. Advaita Acharya also. Nityananda Prabhu. So Nityananda Prabhu's disciples, Vrindavana Das Thakur, Krishnadas Kaviraj, they both wrote. Vrindavana Das Thakur wrote Chaitanya Bhagavat, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita. The disciples Nityananda Prabhu. Advaita Acharya, disciple Yadunanda Acharya. Then we have Raghunath Das Goswami. So these 6 Goswami at this level. And Rup Goswami, Jeev Goswami down here. Then we have Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, Shanant Pandit. From Narottam Das Thakur we continue down, include Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vidya Bhushan, coming down all the way to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada. And all of us who are connected to ISKCON come in this line of Narottam Das Thakur. So these are the different names. We'll get more and more familiar with them. But I think now we've covered some more Chaitanya Charitamrita. Some of these names are more recognizable. Now, this final section is dramatic and deeply significant. Earlier, on his way to Vrindavan, Mahaprabhu passed through the town of Varanasi. Varanasi is a stronghold of impersonalism. There he met Tapan Mishra. He saw the spiritual challenge posed by impersonalists, Prakash Anand Saraswati. This vast community of Mayavadi sannyasis. It's very powerful, big community. It's huge. Ultimately, he defeats them, of course. Eventually, the Mahaprabhu returns, and what follows becomes one of his greatest preaching breakthroughs. By his humility and his beauty and realization, and of course, scriptural mastery, he completely transforms the atmosphere. Those who had dismissed Mahaprabhu as a sentimental person, they became attracted. They become respectful. They become ultimately converted. Now, why is this such a big deal? Because Mayavad is especially dangerous, not merely because it's philosophically incorrect, but because it undermines the personal nature of divine love. It's a form of corruptive seduction. You too are God. You too can also be the control. And that's one of the reasons we even came to the world to begin with. We want to control. We want to be God. This is just another way of saying that. If the absolute is ultimately impersonal, then love is temporary. Relationship is secondary. And devotion becomes merely a tool that you want to rise above, rather than the eternal goal itself. Mahaprabhu defeats that conception, not merely by argument, but by his presence. He embodies the truth that the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Being, is supremely personal, and that this highest perfection is loving service. Bhakti, devotional love, loving devotional service. So in one sense, this section is not only about defeating some opposing doctrine or philosophy, it's about rescuing the possibility of intimacy with God. Because you go down that path of Mayavad, that possibility is thrown out the window. And that's complete destruction of our potential. Complete destruction. Mayavad bhashya shunile hoibe sharbanash, Mahaprabhu says. If you just hear Mayavad philosophy, sharbanash, everything will be destroyed. You have no hope. Mayavad is very dangerous because of that seduction. And it looks like something sacred because everyone is wearing saffron and they're carrying dandas and they have given up the material world and so on and so forth. But it destroys the path to Krishna. And that leaves us with a practical reflection. Every generation has its own forms of impersonalism. Sometimes it is philosophical. Sometimes it is emotional. Sometimes it is institutional. Sometimes it is subtle. Anything that reduces Krishna from person to concept, from beloved to abstraction, carries that danger. Mahaprabhu calls us back from abstraction to relationship. As we near the close, let's gather the key themes of this session. Mahaprabhu longed for Vrindavan. He reveals the glory of Vrindavan. He walked through Vraja and awakened its sacred geography. He then raised up the Gosvamis to preserve, to organize his movement. And finally, he broke through this stronghold of impersonalism. He cleared the path for personal devotion to spread widely. So aspiration, revelation, organization, and protection of Siddhanta, they all come together here in this section of Madhya Leela. Let us end with this meditation. Mahaprabhu did not go to Vrindavan as a tourist. He went as one consumed by longing. He did not empower the Goswamis merely to manage a movement. He empowered them to protect the possibility of divine love for the world. And that's not easy to do. To preserve it for generations to come is absolutely difficult. But he found the right persons for the job. He did not defeat Mayavad merely to win an argument and bragging rights. He did it so that the soul would never forget that the ultimate reality is personal. It's beautiful and lovable. And that means this session is not just history. Remember, please don't take these sessions as history. The school of bhakti is not so that you can pass a history test. It is an invitation. We are invited to deepen our aspiration, to seek our own inner Vrindavan, to honor the holy places, to water the seed of devotion, to take shelter of Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. And next time when we sing No, Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Sabitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam. That may we remember the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami and his contribution. We take shelter of Rupa and Sanatan. We invited to help preserve Mahaprabhu's gift ourselves in a way that is faithful, that is deep, that is organized and alive. Vrindavan is the heart. The Goswamis are the guardians. Mahaprabhu is the giver. If we stay close to his gift, then our life too can become part of this sacred unfolding. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much for your kind attention and your valuable time. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Okay, I see Vidhi has raised her hand. Hare Krishna, Vidhi, so nice to see you again.
Hare Krishna. So Prabhuji, I had a question, and it's been working on my mind since our few sessions and otherwise as well. You've talked a lot about with the discussions about devotion, inner the inner. So the listening to spirituality without practical implication of spirituality are two different things. So it's all good listening, but implementation is quite key as well, because it's got a, it's great if you come out of a session and you think, yes, I need to say surrender and be in charge and be in control of my mind and let everything else flow around me, for example, but then not implying it, just come out of the session and start controlling things and become, it's a wiring in the mind, isn't it? That you're used to bad habits and you just start doing that. And then I also think, from our understanding, is devotion lies with your heart and ultimate generosity of the being, because I think you open up yourself to be able to handle different people or devotees, or be an allowance of things. Am I making sense? Yeah. My question is, based on these things, and that we should be applying these. We live in the West, and the mindsets in the West is very different from the East. We come from family oriented cultures, and where we have allowance for our parents, siblings. We live in big communities, which is why we have successful businesses or success. Like India is always thriving in these aspects. We go with knowledge, literature, business acumen, name it. We've got presence. Where we come to the West, I feel like with handling or dealing with certain cultures here, you feel that their hearts are shrunken. That's coming from an eye space. I feel like there's no space allowance, or everything's fixed and boxed and compartmentalized. How do you manage that mindset in order, when it comes to work here, or when you're working for a Western company, or you're working for a Western boss, and it's constantly shrink. I feel like it's a lot of shrinkage of, things, because it's skills versus, how do I put it? The skills versus the spiritual implication, right? Where you're like, okay, if I go in with the open heart and I want to devote myself to my job, etc., and I'm going and having these chats with my bosses and all the rest of it, and the mind is very compartmentalized and block it, and I just want to understand the transitioning of that bhakti, of that devotion that we have in our workspace or in this culture, where you are dealing with a certain mindset. Because
That was
we are.
yeah, okay. It's a lot. He said a lot of things.
Yes.
I'm trying
Sorry,
to.
I had all of this going on.
That's fine. That's fine. Maybe let me, if I hear you correctly.
Yeah.
Let me see if I understand. Hearing is sweet, Right now, what we're doing is sweet to hear all
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
Implementation is hard.
Mhm.
In the Western environment, that friction is amplified because it's fragmented. You're not just one identity. You're living many identities simultaneously. It's not that, like if you're living in India and the proper culture, it's very easy to just add this, right? But we're living in the West. We are many identities simultaneously. You're a professional under a Western mindset, a performance-driven system. You're a family member coming from Indian lineage, balancing expectations. In English and Gujarati, whatever languages you have to deal with, and the culture and the expectation of how you're supposed to dress and how you comb your hair, whatever. Everything is all, you have to balance all that. And then there's the various value systems that we find ourselves pulled. There's cultural bridges we have to cross. And on top of that, now we feel pulled toward a spiritual practice, which is also, covered in so many layers of culture. You want to be a spiritual practitioner, otherwise you wouldn't be here with the consistent. You're pulled, you're drawn by this amazing philosophy and this practice, right? There's no question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why you're here. That's why everybody who was here is here. But what happens, like you said, that fragmentation creates compartmentalization. And sometimes compartmentalization is neither good nor bad, it's just a phenomenon. But that compartmentalization, depending on how you approach it, can create tension. So, okay, how do you deal with it? First, we have to accept the reality without romanticizing it. Right? It's kind of naive to say, Vedi, just chant and everything will be aligned. No, it's not. Chanting is the most powerful thing, but even Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur? He's a great grand spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. Even he lived in the middle of British India, colonial bureaucracy. He was a magistrate. He became a lawyer, became a magistrate, became a judge. So colonial bureaucracy, legal systems, social pressures, English, white people coming and dominating your culture, the Britishers. He wasn't in a cave. He was navigating complexity. The issue was not, why is this so hard? The issue is, this is the field in which our bhakti is meant to be practiced. If spirituality only worked in ideal environments, it would not be universal. In Bhaktivinoda Thakur's environment was not ideal. You understand the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough. He had to work with these Britishers with the handlebar mustaches, go all the way up here, talking on, Radha, and he had to deal with those kind of people. And he had to talk like them. The real exhaustion is in the split identity. It comes from our internal dialogue. At work, I have to think one way. At home, I have to speak another way. In spiritual life, another way. This creates a leakage of energy.
Yeah.
Drainage. Am I representing your thoughts correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it when you said that this is where bhakti needs to be practiced. It's in these complex environments.
Yeah, but what is the shift that we need? How do I manage these compartments? That's not the question, actually. The shift we need is, what is the single identity that flows through all these compartments? Not a role-based identity, but a value-based identity. For example, these values are going to be there no matter which identity I'm having. Integrity has to be everywhere. You don't want to lower your integrity in different environments. You always want to be a person of highest integrity. No matter which mask you're wearing. Don't justify having lower integrity because you have to wear a different mask. Integrity, compassion. Even when you're in the corporate world, you do want to feel your neighbor's pain. You don't have to be heartless now all of a sudden in your corporate world. So let me be heartless because the world is heartless. No! Your compassion is your eternal quality that you want to sharpen, deepen. Integrity, compassion, discipline. And a mindset to serve. these things, no matter whether you're in a meeting in the corporate world or you're hanging out with the family or chanting with devotees, all these are there. You're not switching personalities. You're expressing the same core identity of having a person of high integrity, compassion, discipline, and service through different contexts. That's why the very famous book, when it came out, I read it. It's called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. It came out in 93 or 94, and it was, when it just came out, I read it. And like, wow, this is like, it's all about, in modern terms, how to express compassion in the corporate world or in your modern world. And I realized this is an eternal principle that's taught by Mahaprabhu and by Prabhupada. You see, so if we have these elements as a part of our core identity, we don't need to switch personalities so much. You may switch your accent to talk to different people. You may switch your jargon to talk to different people. You use certain words that in the corporate world that you wouldn't use here because, just a matter of understanding and conveying. But these elements, the core elements of your personality that spirituality is going to deepen and help you identify, they'll get stronger. And when you approach it this way, this alone reduces about half your stress.
I had another question on generosity because...
I'm not quite done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Maybe you should be a little more generous with my time now. One more thing. Like you said, because see, you asked many, many things. And I noted them, and I'm addressing them one by one. You asked about rewiring of the mind. These are your words. Rewiring is hard. The mistake is trying to remove habits. In bhakti, the rewiring is not by suppression so much, but by replacement. You see? So instead of eliminate distraction and ego and stress, shift to what higher engagement can I add that's strong enough to displace this. See, that rewiring, that angle of rewiring is important. Engage the senses, give the mind a higher taste, let the lower patterns weaken naturally, and you realize, it's actually pretty lame. I can't believe I was actually doing that. You see? And this doesn't just mean gross habits like smoking and stuff like that. It means the way I talk to people, for example. I can't believe I used to talk to people like that. Like, what? It's awful, but now I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to jump to conclusions. I'm going to give the person time to speak. I'm going to try to understand what they're saying. I'm trying to go deeper. When they say something, read between the lines. Really understand from heart to heart where their pain is coming from. Even if someone is difficult, even if someone is harsh, even if someone is unfair, we know that all that is coming from a place of pain somewhere. Can I try to really understand that? Can I be generous enough to do that? Use this word shrinkage. It's very perceptive. These Western corporate environments, they operate in efficiency, optimization, metrics, so on. But in spirituality, we're seeking expansion of consciousness, depth, meaning, connection, generosity, and so on. They feel like they're opposites. So externally, you operate in efficiency. Internally, you cultivate inner expansion. You don't need the system to change. You don't need to shrink your heart. You need an inner parallel system. For example, okay, how do I do that? You have a task at work. You complete the task efficiently. Chop, chop, chop. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very efficient in how he did stuff. What most people would take 3-4 hours, he would do it in 20 minutes or half an hour. Very efficient. Very good. But internally offer the result. Thank Krishna for the ability to do things. Offer the result. Krishna, this is wonderful, and the result from this I'll offer in your service. You deal with difficult people in proper ways, firm if you need to be, soft when you need to be. But internally you practice empathy and tolerance. People will sense that you care for them. You operate in KPIs, key performance indicators. I work in that field of KPIs. That's my main focus. I've been doing that for 26 years. What are good KPIs, what are not so good, how do I present them, how do I analyze them, data, technology. I've been doing that for a long time. You operate in those KPIs, but you measure yourself by your steadiness of your consciousness. That's your KPI. Now our workplace becomes a training ground, not an obstacle, not something you tolerate, but a place where you can also grow in Krishna consciousness. That's where leverage comes in. So I'm going to pause here. You had a question about generosity. I see you're writing very intensely, which is a great sign. I really appreciate this, Vidhi. I really appreciate that you're taking it seriously. Thank you.
Because if you don't pen it, it doesn't stick.
You have to. Yeah. You have to gel it. I mean, you won't gel until you use a pen. And
like you just said, it's spiritual hearing and implementation are two different things. So it's all great if you listen and then you leave the session, it's gone. And then if you pen it, you're like, okay, these are the things I take from the class. Not everything, but these are the things I take, and it stays, it works. The generosity piece is what I mean. I think not so much in the corporate environment, as you said. I understand how it works, and coming from, if I may say, I come from a business family back in India, so I understand what comes down to resources and cutting costs, and or I understand the backward integration of how things work. But I'm saying in terms of generosity when it comes to handling people, dealing with people, generosity of food, generosity of space, just generally when you do, and I think as you become more conscientious, you understand that people don't have the same levels of generosity, and you accept and tolerate that that's their limitation, and that's okay. Everything has to coexist to run. But I do struggle with I don't know. I think I struggle with it because I think sometimes giving that space is important. Extra space or extra generosity is important to accommodate people. But I don't think it's reciprocated. Not reciprocation, but I don't think it's understood in the same way. From the other side, and I think it can be misused. It can be misused in workplaces. It can be misused in friendship groups. It can be misused in families. So it's more through like navigating it, because what I don't want to do is become a less generous person because I'm misused for it. Or
because what? Sorry? Because
I'm misused for it. So if I'm able to give somebody 2 hours of my time and then I don't want to get transactional, because people get transactional. Oh, she gave 2 hours, I must reciprocate with 2 hours. It's not the case. It's a quality versus, the time scale. But what I'm saying is people don't respect it sometimes. People, she's generous, she's fine, we'll just misuse it. That kind of emotional intelligence around it is not there. So I'm just saying, how do you navigate through that? Do you cut your time limits with such people and draw your boundaries? And then, or do you do what you do because that's your moral compass and that's okay and you tolerate it?
Yes, okay. Of course, different people have different levels of generosity. We all have our own level of generosity. Like you mentioned, giving time or money or food, emotional support, skills or service. Some people are just more generous than others. Some people get taken for granted, taken for a ride and robbed, and they're gullible, not just of their money, but they're robbed of their time, and then now there's not much time or energy left for doing things that are important for them, for their development as well. So all those things are there. Sometimes we measure generosity by our preferred currency. Right? We measure it, and it's like this person is less generous, this person is more generous, and we measure it by our own yardstick. I notice that when I'm driving on the highway, I notice everybody who's driving faster than me is a maniac, and everybody who's driving slower than me is an idiot, because mine is a gold standard. Right? So of course, what is a gold standard? We do have to be generous, but we don't want to assume that our expression of generosity is the standard. Even in spiritual communities, this comparison creeps in subtle ways. And like you said, the transactional generosity, I gave, therefore they should also give. Expectations, and then if they don't meet expectations, you all of a sudden become cold to them, or you become angry at them. And this generosity then becomes a transaction, not an offering. But bhakti reframes this completely. Now we talk about Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami, he mentions, you're familiar with Nectar of Instruction. I hope you've read that book. It's just a small book, only 11 verses. Very good book. You can read the whole book in literally 15 minutes. I mean, just but it has all the essence. In that one, there's one verse, is Dadati Pratikranati. Giving and receiving is an exchange of love. Giving something, some token or even food or something. It's an exchange based on affection, not accounting. And if we keep an internal ledger, we'll always feel some imbalance. Now, we do understand that some people are less generous. Before judging, we want to basically understand without excusing. Okay, we don't excuse there. Sometimes they're actually freeloaders. And they know it. And they're manipulators. And they know it. And they smile about it and they think they're getting away with it. And that's fine. But before judging them, perhaps it helps us understand why someone appears less generous. I know he has money. Yet whenever we have these potlucks, he never brings anything. Year after year. Like nothing. But he drives this incredibly expensive car and he lives in a big house. So I know he has money. But it's just some mindset that they have to overcome. Sometimes it's a scarcity mindset. They fear loss, insecurity, instability. And sometimes even when someone is very abundant, but they're just very stingy in certain ways. Another thing is cultural conditioning. Different upbringings define what is normal generosity. If it's a beggar, it has to be a coin. If you go to a temple, it has to be coins. But if it's at a restaurant, then it has to be banknotes. You give in tips to the guy. It's just a cultural thing. But the temple does so much, but then the temple only put coins. I have to find my purse of coins and put in there. Because that's what you do in temples. You don't give banknotes, So another is emotional exhaustion. Some people may not have the capacity emotionally. Some people have lack of exposure. They have not seen generosity modeled properly. They don't know, oh wow, you can actually do that? Like, how can you give so much of your time to someone? I mean, some people are even astounded. How can you give so much of your time to me? And they're moved by it. They're moved by an abundance of generosity in your partners. Oh, you know what? I'm going to change. I'm going to become more like Vidhi. I'm going to be more generous. It happens. You by your example can shift someone's mindset. So, of course, it's your standard. You have to understand their journey. But we also have to learn to be more generous ourselves. What is the expected level of generosity? Everyone is at a different stage in this expansion of the heart. So, of course, there's practical boundaries. Generosity is not equal to overextension, okay, and burnout and being robbed. This is critical. Sometimes frustration comes because we give beyond our capacity, and then we expect reciprocation. This leads to burnout. So, what is healthy generosity then? Okay, if you say this is burnout, what is healthy? Let's see if we can identify some elements of healthy generosity, right? One, it doesn't have to come from pressure. It has to be voluntary. If you feel pressured to do it and you're paying to do it, then it's not healthy. One. Second, it has to be sustainable. If you can do it consistently without feeling drained, whether it's energy-wise or food-wise or financially or time or whatever. It has to be sustainable. And third, it has to be joyfully done. If it's done resentfully, then you're bordering on unhealthy generosity, overextension. So if it's voluntary, sustainable, and joyful, that's how you want to measure a healthy generosity. If those are missing, then that is overextension. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is infinitely generous spiritually, but he was still discerning in relationships and engagements. He'd say, avoid those people, don't spend time with them. That means he's not generous with his time with certain people. Leave them alone. We do that too. We're judging people all the time. We go on the street and we see one group of people who are like dancing, but they're drunk and they're like, holding some meat in their hands and they're just like pushing each other. They're having a good time. And there's another group of people, of Hare Krishna devotees, who are also dancing and chanting, but they're blissful and happy. We choose which group to hang out with. We choose which one to follow and make friends with. Isn't that being judgmental? It is, but not judgmental in a judgy kind of way. It's really more of, no, this is going to be good for me. They're actually happy. I want to find out the key to their happiness. I want to be like them. So of course, Mahaprabhu, he demonstrated generosity with his time, but he also demonstrated where we should be generous with our time. See? So there's different angles, the different lenses through which we can see others in their generosity, but also be inspired by those who are more generous than us. How can I be less stressed in giving? Why are they like this? Why are they so inspiring? There's something there. All right? Okay. Anyone else have any comments or questions? All right. I think we're reaching the hour and a half mark. So many of our friends are here that I know and recognize. Let's see, anyone else?
Ashish has a question. He's written.
Oh, yeah. Somehow I must have missed. Okay. Thank you for reminding me. There's some questions on the chat. Oh, yeah, the questions guy missed the chat altogether. Okay. Anand Vardhana Prabhu is asking, is Abrahamic religion considered as Mayavadi? Not if you take it directly. Also, different followers and different groups of Abrahamic traditions have gone down the path of impersonalism. There is heavy impersonalism in many of their philosophical aspects. But it is mixed. It's a mixed bag. There's impersonalism there, but Mayavadi is a particular kind of impersonalism. So you can't really say they're Mayavadis, but there's a lot of impersonalism in there, depending on what part of the philosophy that they emphasize. Also, theologically, the biblical lineage has evolved over time. When Jesus Christ spoke, he spoke about a Father in heaven who is a person, and we go to the heavenly kingdom and we interact with him afterward. So that's not impersonalism. But later on, what happens, because the New Testament is actually heavily influenced by Greek philosophy. The original New Testament was written in Greek. So there's the combination. The Greek philosophy is a lot of impersonal undertones, heavy impersonalism. So that kind of fused with the theology of Jesus Christ. So if you study that a little more deeply, you'll get a feel for why that happened historically, and why it kind of devolved into many aspects of elements of impersonalism. But it's not exactly Mayavadi. So if you really want to get into it, that's a whole different world, a different can. But and if you are interested, there are great works by ISKCON devotees who have explored this. So that's something you could look up. Ashish has a question. If Adi Shankaracharya's divine mission was to defeat Buddhism by using a compromised philosophy impersonalism, why? Yes. Why did he? Let me just see. Why did he? I can't read this. Compose the Bhaja Govindam using direct worship of Govinda. Was he breaking character from his mission, or is he actually a devotee whose Mayavad was just temporary tactic? A little bit of both. It's a great question. Fantastic question. So Adi Shankaracharya, his core mission was to defeat Buddhism. But of course, beyond defeating Buddhism, his main core was to re-establish the authority of the Vedas. That's his main mission. Okay, why do you want to defeat Buddhism? Really to re-establish Vedas. And to systematically give Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, so that you can engage with multiple impersonal schools, of which Buddhism was prominent. So it was a multi-layered task that he had. Now, Shankaracharya's teachings are two tiers, or they operate in two different levels. One is a philosophical and the other is devotional. So philosophically, it's Advaita Vedanta. Advaita means that there's non-dual. Advaita, Dva means two. Non-dual, Brahman. That's ultimate reality. This world is mithya. This world is false. And the goal is that you realize that you are not different from this Advaita Brahman, and you merge, right? Then the devotional, he actually composed stotras and bhajans, primarily worship of Krishna. Sometimes even worship of Shiva and all that. But the emphasis in those again was surrender, humility, and devotion. And there was a lot of theism, that Krishna is God. So, of course, in one sense, he was breaking from his core task of impersonalism, but that was basically to defeat the Buddhists and so on. But he also revealed that in his heart he was a Govinda worshipper. This is one of his most famous compositions, Bhaja Govinda. It's sung everywhere. So many people know it, and especially in South India, it's huge. They love it. Like any Bharatanatyam performance, they'll have some Bhaja Govindam. There'll be some, they're dancing on it. It's beautiful. Worship Govinda. Mudamate, you fools. Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. You fools. You worship Govinda. Worship Govinda. At the end of your life, this dukrin, this grammatical jugglery that you're doing is not going to come and help you. Only Krishna is going to come and help you. So you see, that was his he was critiquing the dry intellectualism. He's reminding us that of our death, impermanence, reminding us of the call to surrender to Krishna. Of course, this is not just playing a role. That's him coming out himself. He's deeply moved by devotion, because Shankaracharya is an incarnation of Lord Shiva himself. Okay, so he can't help himself. It wasn't really breaking character as such, though. He was being consistent. He was just extending the philosophy that now look, the next phase of evolution is, after we establish Vedas, to whatever means necessary, we have to go to Govinda. See? So he set up the stage, like a handoff, the baton to the next acharyas who are going to now take that Govinda baton and move it forward and run with it. So the four acharyas who came later, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Nimbaka, Vishnu Swami, these great acharyas, they took that baton of Bhaja Govinda, you see, and they carried it forward. So he left that opening there. He said so different ways to look at it, But thank you for your question. And let's see. So I think that's the end of the written questions as well. And that's the end of our time together. This was episode number 6. Next Saturday we will cover session 7. I hope we can all make it then. We'll see you then. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.